Hey guys, what's going on? It's your N.G.O.s here. This is part 3 of my plans for today, or at least rough plans for today. I usually write them up, but I thought I'd make a video of some of my plans, and hopefully some out there will enjoy it and be inspired by it, or at least think of some sort of be inspired or to think about your own ideas for charity or whatnot. If you've got any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to include them in the comment section, and I'll try and answer them or respond to them or whatever as soon as possible. I appreciate any shares, likes, or general support, advice, guidance, like what are your ideas for charity, what would you do to help other people. I mainly think of supporting people from Asia, but obviously not everyone has the same goals, but or just around the world it could be, but at the moment I'm mainly focusing on Asia. Anyway, I'll try and get on with the list. I'll try not to make this too long. I'm going to try and make this down to 10 minutes if I can, because I know some of the other ones have been the other two have been over 10 minutes. So anyway, point 21, this channel really at the moment for April, May and June, and as I say, some part of August as well, will really be for people especially in April, May and June, who have an interest in Asia, Asian projects, history, culture. And I haven't talked much about the cultural side of things or tradition, but I'm hoping to find out about those. But people who are interested in Asia and, as I say, the history of Asia, and also how to and also sharing that information in the comments and all that sort of stuff. So it's for people with an interest in Asia, either who are from an Asian background or from Asia itself, or just generally who have an interest in Asia and they find Asia to be interesting or whatever. But yeah, who have general interest for whatever reason in Asia. So yeah, that's who the channel really is for. And recapping some of the older ideas, and what I was talking about recently was about how apparently I just saw yesterday or last night something about a 60 minutes Australian view, and they seem to have blocked the comments for some reason. But they're saying that China is now being sued by Australia, the US, and I think the UK and possibly some other countries. And people seem to be clamping on down on China, blaming them for the coronavirus, rightly or wrongly, and saying they had a cover up or whatever. But I was talking about how I think that would be unfair for China to have to pay if the UK, the UK, US, and Australia wouldn't have to pay for things like the wars they were involved in, because one of the arguments is like the jobs that were lost from the problems, unfortunately, which obviously I feel sorry for people who lost their jobs or lost loved ones or have become ill or still suffering because of this. But I think look at how many people have been killed, or how many have lost their families and their houses, their businesses, jobs. The economy has been decimated in Iraq, and I don't know how much compensation that'd be worth, or the oil that's been taken out and given to other countries where the Iraqi people haven't had that. So I think it would be only fair even if America and Australia and the UK did get this money, you'd be like, when people talk about reparations, sometimes they say that Western countries shouldn't pay reparations because it happened so long ago, or because who would you pay it to, or because the countries don't have the money, or whatever other reasons they have for not paying reparations, whatever excuses or reasons, whichever way you look at it. But and I've gone a bit off topic, but I thought I'd include that as I saw the documentary. So as it happens, I decided to include it in these videos. But I was mentioning that I think it would be only fair if that was the case for some, even if they managed to sue China and they managed to get the money, surely that money should actually go to some of the, like for instance, Aborigines in Australia. If Australia is going to get that money, surely they should be made to give at least some of it, if not all of it, really, to people like the Aborigines, people across Indigenous Australasians, to network together and empower them and empower their careers, and also which are still really struggling, so it's still relevant to today. So I don't think you just say it's history. And also Vietnamese, and how Vietnam has been affected, and probably it still affects Vietnam and its economy today when they were taken over. And I think people were born with disabilities. I'm not sure if they still are, but many have suffered from disabilities because of the chemicals and whatever else that was in that area. and Iraq, which is prevalent, still happening today, and India's economy, which was decimated, and even China itself, which went through the opium wars and things like that. So I think, and still has a lot of poverty there. It has to solve itself. So I think it'd be unfair if China had to pay and other countries didn't have to pay the same amount. I think if one group should pay, I mean, people talk about, like, say, for instance, Turkey. They say that Turkey should pay for things like the Armenian genocide or things like that. So, but I think if you're in Turkey's position, sure, you'd say, well, if we have to pay, surely everyone. It's unfair for, like, countries in Eastern countries, like Asian and African nations, to have to pay when they do something bad. But Western nations don't seem to have to pay very often. Like, and if one group gets compensation, it doesn't seem to be fair to other groups. Like, for instance, if Jewish people got money for the Holocaust, but what about people of, like, black or Asian people not getting money for things that have happened, like the Bengal famine, I think it was, or things like that, or even the Irish or other groups. But anyway, I've gone off a bit, but my main theme is trying to help charity, but also about justice and what I think is right and fair. Anyway, I'm going to try and move on, because, as I say, this video has been really long already, so I'm going to try and do this really quick. So please please forgive me, sorry, if I talk too fast. Number 22, on that note, I hope for Asian and African nations, I've talked about before, to network together and improve relations. I definitely think that China and other Asian nations should treat the African people better. People of colour being generally, like people from Africa and Asia, what I talked about before, and even the diaspora, people of African and Asian background, even mixed race people like myself, should network together. And maybe Asian nations could host events against imperialism, colonialism, empire and supremacy. I call that ISIS, as in a different type of ISIS, but I don't know if I should say that. But or even going against, talking about how to ensure security and tackle extremism generally, not from the white supremacists or other forms of extremists. 23, as I talked before about how to support 10% poorest people in every country. I suppose, I don't know if I would have got this idea generally, or maybe it's like a biblical thing. Sorry to repeat myself from what I talked about earlier, but I'm going to try not to repeat too much of what I said earlier, but about what you do to the lowest amongst you is what you do to God, in a way. Or Jesus says, what you do to the lowest amongst you is what you do to me. So that's why, I suppose that might be the reason why I say support 10% poorest people and people from slums and orphanages and things like that, especially in Asia, as I say, but all around the world as well, and homeless people. Anyone who's homeless, if I can help them, I would. At the moment, I'm prioritising Asia, but just all around the world as well. 24, as I say, I really hope to encourage Pan-Asianism, and that could be like politically impact supporting each other, like if Asian or and also they could work with African nations as well. If European nations or America, Australia, like pick on, if you like, so the Asian nations, they can like stick together and support each other, and then obviously help each other when they need help and all that sort of stuff. I'd love to see more relations between, like, a Chindian network between China and India, and networks I've talked before about Malaysia and India, Indonesia and Singapore, and improving those relations as much as possible. 25, I hope to find ways, as I say, to fundraise for especially republics in Asia, and how maybe if Asian nations host Republican events, then they can invite republics from around the world and discuss how to empower each other and support each other, and host summits where they share goals and how to increase security and tourism and all that. Obviously, they'd have to wait till it's safe to travel and things like that as much as possible. But hopefully in the future they'll do that sort of thing. 26, I hope to, as I talked about supporting countries in Asia, nations in Africa, Asia at this moment, like Iraq or Vietnam. But I also hope to support other countries that are colonized, like Ireland, and countries like that, and talk about ideas one day of how to empower them as well. As I say, I would also love to listen, as I talked before, about what other ideas other people have. 27, if businesses and organizations support Asian NGOs and support charities that help people in Asia, then hopefully people from Asia will buy more from those companies. So it's like rewarding them with PR and stuff like that. But obviously, I hope they'll test to make sure that it does make a genuine positive difference. 28, as I say, I hope for all these negatives and problems to have a positive outcome. Like I suppose most people would anyway. But like for instance, discrimination against people from the Far East, but I hope that will help Far East, especially, and Asia generally, to network together and talk about how they have things in common, how they all just much of Asia, or all of Asians really, all Asians have, including from the diaspora, have suffered from discrimination probably at some point. So hopefully that can bring them together more and tackle some of these divisions and help them to network together. 29, I hope to encourage other people to, especially my fellow mixed race people with learning disabilities, to support Asia, and especially like I talked before about people like John Chambers and Richard Branson, successful dyslexics, financially successful dyslexics, depending on how you measure success, investing in supporting startups and training dyslexic people in Asia to become startups and all that. And I'm hoping to work with organizations in the future to travel, on my bucket list, to travel to parts of Asia, as many parts of Asia as possible, support dyslexic schools, ADHD schools, special needs schools generally, and how we can look at the strengths of people from neurodiverse backgrounds like autistic, dyslexic, and ADHD. I know I'm repeating a lot of these points, but I'm hoping that I can somehow get organizations together. And I think if you repeat points, I don't want to be boring, but if you repeat points, I think they're more likely to work. And 30, I'll say I'd love to hear from other people, network with as many people as possible, charities, NGOs, people who can travel to Asia, look how to empower people and teach them how to be empowered. And yeah, charities, NGOs, and things like that. So anyway, sorry if I was waffling. I didn't quite achieve my goal of under 10 minutes or whatnot. But anyway, peace and love. Have a good day wherever you are.